morning, everybody. Let me just tell you how this is going to go. I'm going to introduce John Doe. He is going to read a statement for you. Then I am going to read a statement. And then after that, I can take limited questions to the extent that I'm capable. So I'm going to let John Doe read his statement for you. Read it loud, okay?
My name is John Doe.
Read it loud.
My name is John Doe. As a child, I attended St. Charles School in Port Charlotte, where Father Leo Riley repeatedly abused me for years. I never told anybody back then. He said that if I told, he would do to my sister what he was doing to me. I buried these memories very deep, but I couldn't keep them buried forever. When they started coming back in flashes and nightmares, I knew I needed to do something so that Riley would not hurt anyone else. I'm standing here now on behalf of myself and anyone else who is a victim of Leo P. Riley. If you were abused by this man, you are not alone. There is help available to you. I will refer any questions to my attorney, Damian Mallard. Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Damian Mallard. I'm an attorney, and I represent this brave young man you just heard from. Thank you all for being here for what we consider to be a public service to the community. We're here because, as we all now know, 4 men who in the mid-1980s were altar boys in Iowa have claimed that Father Leo Riley sexually abused them. And he has now been charged with crimes against them in that jurisdiction. We know there's an ongoing investigation here in Florida for crimes my client claims were perpetrated against him in the early to mid-2000s when he was a young boy. Law enforcement here in Florida needs to help. They need help from anybody who has relevant information to please come forward so that we can rid the community of this threat. I want to point out that chronologically, it is a fact that within days of the release of the Boston Globe Spotlight article exposing the Catholic Church sex abuse scandal in Boston, Massachusetts, Father Riley made a request to be reassigned to Florida. He came to Southwest Florida and has been assigned to parishes in both Port Charlotte and Naples. In 2015, a man named Jeff Buchheit came forward stating that Father Riley abused him while serving as an altar boy back in Iowa in the 1980s. My client owes a debt of gratitude to Mr. Buchheit, whose brave pursuit of this matter is the reason we are all here. Thank you, Jeff. At the time of Mr. Buchheit's coming forward in Iowa, the Archdiocese of Dubuque claimed to have conducted an investigation and found insufficient evidence to substantiate Mr. Buchheit's claims. We are attempting to gain access to that investigation to see what was actually done, and to date we've been unable to secure that information due to legal maneuvering designed to prevent us from obtaining that documentation. Due to that 2015 investigation, Father Riley was temporarily removed from his duties here in Florida, but then was reinstated by the Diocese of Venice. My client, John Doe, was a student at St. Charles, a Catholic school in Port Charlotte in the early to mid-2000s. He came to us for help because he was also sexually abused by Father Riley on a number of occasions over a lengthy period of time. What is very troubling to my client is the statement released by the Diocese of Venice, I believe yesterday, claiming that Leo Riley was immediately placed on administrative leave upon learning of another allegation against Father Riley. That statement is at best misleading, if not inaccurate. The fact is that the diocese itself notified Charlotte County through the State Attorney's Office in August of 2020 of my client's allegations. Further, my client, through a civil lawsuit, made the diocese aware of his allegations and has sworn to his abuse in a deposition under oath. Therefore, despite these indisputable facts, Father Riley was not suspended or removed from his position immediately, as the diocese press release claims, but rather not until May of 2023, nearly 3 years later, after a third person back in Iowa reported abuse at the hands of this priest. So I would invite you all to ask those you deem appropriate. Why was Father Riley permitted to remain in his position with access to children for nearly 3 years after my client became the second person to alleged sex abuse by him, filed a lawsuit, and had sworn to it under oath. The question also becomes, how many people have to be claimed to be abused by a priest before it's enough to place him on administrative leave and remove him from any possible access to children? Apparently, it's at least 3 people. We know now there are at least 5 known total accusers, 4 in Iowa, and my client. We call on Father Riley, St. Charles Borromeo Catholic Church, and the Diocese of Venice to acknowledge and admit that the crimes of this man, and to act with all deliberate speed to make this right and help these men heal from the nightmare they've lived for decades. And most importantly, we would ask that if anyone here in Florida has any information about Father Riley regarding my client's abuse, or any other person's allegations of abuse against him, or who him or herself was a victim of abuse at the hands of this man, to come forward, contact the Charlotte County Sheriff's Department, and tell them what you know. You should know that you're not alone, and there is help out there for you. Justice for what happened to you is within your reach. Please contact the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office so that justice can be had for John Doe and all the other victims of Riley's abuse. Thank you, and I can answer some limited questions. You all should have a packet with these presentations, as well as the amended lawsuit that we are currently pursuing. Anybody have anything they'd like to ask? July of 2020. They are investigating it, and we've been doing what we can to aid them in that.
Did this shatter his belief in God, or, I mean, what did it do to him?
It completely broke him as a human being. He has been unable to hold employment. He sequesters himself most of the time by himself, doing gaming online to have something to do. He is applying for disability. Unfortunately, he is one of the folks who suppressed these memories until his early adulthood. And as they started to come back, he sought a counselor. And then when things really started to come forward, he approached us, and it has completely broken his life. I don't know the answer to that, but we're hopeful that anybody who is a victim is going to be watching this and will now see that they're not alone, that there are others, that there is help available, and that they can come forward because there are strength in numbers to help us rid this community of that threat.
You reported this to the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office 4 years ago, right?
I didn't. The Diocese of Venice did.
They did.
Yes, they reported it to the state attorney's office. We brought it to the Charlotte County Sheriff's Department when my client developed enough fortitude to go and do that, which was about a year ago, and they've been investigating this since.
They've had it for a year.
From my client. My client was not in the position yet to handle that. Last, I believe it was May, he decided that he was ready to go forward, and we went and gave a statement, and there's been an ongoing investigation. I would say that I completely understand that, but it is only through strength and coming forward that you can heal. Otherwise, you will always have to live with this for the rest of your life. If you come forward, there are people that can help, there are services that can be provided, and you don't have to live with this as a cloud over your head. It is a weight that you can take off of your back.
How would you describe some of the shortcomings that you see from the diocese response to these allegations?
Well, I just pointed out that they claim that they suspended him immediately, but that was after the Diocese of Dubuque told them about a second man in Iowa. Apparently, my client saying that it happened here, swearing to it under oath, filing a lawsuit, wasn't enough. Why would he not be suspended, even if just so that there's a chance that my client was actually telling the truth? The other thing that I would tell you is that, as with most victims, my client was originally scoffed at. And what I mean by that is the way that he was asked about this, it was as if he had to prove that he wasn't being less than honest, which was worse. It was salt into the open wounds to have to be questioned about whether or not you're telling a real story about what happened. And it was only through Jeff Buchheit and my investigator, where we were able to find the folks in Iowa and have them come forward, and it is all Jeff Buchheit who gets the credit for this. I want you to know that. This young man, who I've never met, but who this morning told me how proud he is of this young man standing here today, and I know he's watching this in the live stream. Jeff, thank you.
Do you think that the church kicked them down to Charlotte County after they knew something, or what do you think?
I don't know the answer to that, because there have been requests for documentation, and we have been blocked in getting a lot of that documentation to this point. All I can tell you is that it is a fact that within days, I think it was within 4 days of the Spotlight article coming out in the Boston Globe, there was a request to move to Florida by Father Riley. I don't have any other factual information beyond that, but it seems rather curious to me.
How old is your client?
32.
He's 32 at this point. And this happened somewhere between pre-K and 8th grade.
Can you talk about just being in school, just how Father Riley here used what would be students' trust to really violate?
I can't hear your question.
Can you talk about just how he was at the school and just the role that he held and what he was expected to do and how he really violated that trust?
Well, he was supposed to be a man of God. He was supposed to teach these kids the teachings of Jesus Christ. He was supposed to show them leadership. He was supposed to show them the way. And he did all of the opposite. It's just that simple, Ken.
What did he say to him to keep him quiet?
Well, he was threatened, as you can see from the statement that John Doe gave, that there would be physical and or verbal and or mental ramifications to his sister who would be abused if he were to bring this forward, which is common. It's either that or you're going to go to hell or other things to scare children into remaining silent.
What are some things parents watching this that have children at their church, warning signs, or what should they be talking to their kids?
If their children suddenly become disinterested in activities at school or church that they used to love to go to, if they have separation anxiety and don't want to be away from you, you need to start wondering, why is that happening? They need to have conversations with their children about that it's okay to tell you, the parent, if there's somebody who touches you inappropriately. I think almost all parents that I know do that, but these folks are very, very creative in how they do this and the way that they do this and the threats that they use to keep kids quiet. So these kids need to be educated that if these things are told to you, it's still okay to come forward.
What's the feeling now that this is all coming out? You know, it's been so many years that it's finally in the light.
Well, it's a combination of being elated and incredibly saddened. Because elated that there is the hope for justice, and very saddened that it took all of this to get to this point.
Do you think there are more victims in Florida?
I would be very surprised if there are not. One of the reasons that you are all here, frankly, the main reason you all are here, is because this man wants to talk to anybody who is a victim. He just told you this in a statement. If you have been abused, it is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Come forward. There are services, there are things that can be done to help you, and you can see to it that this is prosecuted, and it will lift this burden off of you that you do not have to carry around.
What would John Doe's recommendation if you could make him for sentencing? Father Riley's
I think that we're going to leave that to the good people that are on his jury when he goes before them. That is not for us to decide. I don't know what's going on in Iowa. You would have to talk to the folks up there. I just know that there have been charges filed.
For your client, there's a court hearing.
No, there's still an ongoing active investigation by the Charlotte County Sheriff's Department, and as far as what's going to happen between them and the state attorney, I don't have any information about that because it's not something that I'm privy to.
You said you talked to Jeff this morning.
I did, and by text last night,
Did he say why he decided to come forward with this when he did?
because he's probably one of the bravest people I've ever met. Can you imagine being raped and molested repeatedly by a priest who has done all kinds of threats to you, and yet you still have the intestinal fortitude to come forward? He did that in 2015. He was told it's your word against him, it's not good enough, and he still didn't give up. He still pursued this. And he was instrumental in helping us and getting these other folks. And I know, because there's multiple people in Iowa, it would be very surprising if there are not multiple people here.
So what changed between 2015 and a couple days ago when they had enough probable cause to make the arrest?
Well, I'm not a criminal lawyer, but I suppose multiple people saying, well, this happened to them probably is pretty persuasive, wouldn't you think? Rather than one person against one person, when you have the more people that say it, in my opinion, the less likely it is that it isn't accurate. I suppose it's possible they all could be lying, but I'd point out that most of these people don't know each other. My client doesn't know these people in Iowa. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.